Never give up. My journey of learning. I still remember the day I decided to learn English seriously. I was in school, sitting in an English class, struggling to understand even the simplest words. Every time the teacher asked a question, I would look down, pretending to read my book, hoping she wouldn't call my name. One day, I overheard some classmates laughing about my poor pronunciation. Their words stung, but instead of giving up, I made a promise to myself. I would learn English no matter how difficult it was. At first, I tried memorizing words, but I would forget them the next day. Grammar rules felt like a puzzle with missing pieces. It was frustrating, but I didn't stop. Instead, I changed my approach. I started watching English movies with subtitles, reading simple books, and even talking to myself in English in front of a mirror. Progress was slow, but one small moment changed everything. One evening, while helping a tourist in my town, I managed to hold a short conversation in English. It wasn't perfect, but I understood him and he understood me. That moment gave me confidence. Over the years, I kept learning, reading, writing, and speaking whenever I could. There were times when I felt stuck, times when I wanted to quit, but I reminded myself why I started. Today, I am proud to say that I can communicate in English with ease. This journey taught me something important. The mind should never give up. Whether it's learning a language or chasing a dream, success comes to those who keep going. So, if you're struggling with something, remember my story. Keep trying, keep learning, and never give up. My journey of learning, part 2. As I continued my journey of learning English, I realized that success wasn't just about effort, it was about consistency. Some days I felt excited to learn new words and practice speaking. Other days I felt stuck, frustrated, and doubtful. But I kept reminding myself, if I give up now, I'll never improve. One of the biggest challenges came when I had to give a short speech in English at school. My teacher announced that each student had to present something in English in front of the whole class. The moment I heard that, my heart started racing. How could I speak in front of everyone when I still struggled with pronunciation? For days, I practiced. I wrote down my speech, read it out loud, and even recorded myself speaking to see where I could improve. I asked a friend who was better at English to listen to me and correct my mistakes. Finally, the day of the speech arrived. As I stood in front of the class, my hands were shaking. I took a deep breath and began speaking. My voice trembled at first, but I kept going. I made mistakes, but I didn't stop. When I finished, there was a moment of silence, and then my classmates started clapping. I couldn't believe it. Even my teacher smiled and said, "You've improved a lot. Keep going." That moment changed everything. I realized that fear only exists in our minds, and the only way to overcome it is to face it. From then on, I became more confident. I started speaking English more even if I made mistakes. I joined conversations, watched English videos without subtitles, and even started writing short stories in English. It wasn't easy, but every step I took brought me closer to fluency. Now, looking back, I understand that the real lesson wasn't just about learning English. It was about never giving up, on learning, on dreams, and on myself. If you're struggling with something today, whether it's a language, a skill, or a challenge in life, remember this. Keep going. Keep learning. Your mind is stronger than you think, and one day you'll look back and realize how far you've come. My journey of learning, part 3. After that speech in school, my confidence grew, but my journey wasn't over. Learning English or anything new wasn't just about one success. It was about pushing through, even when things felt impossible. There were still moments of doubt. One day, I tried to have a conversation with a native English speaker online. I was excited at first, but as soon as the conversation started, I panicked. The person spoke so fast, I could barely understand anything. My mind went blank, and all the words I had learned seemed to disappear. I felt embarrassed and frustrated. That night, I thought, maybe I'll never be good enough. Maybe I should stop trying. But then I remembered something important. Failure is not a reason to quit. It's a sign that I need to keep going. So instead of giving up, I changed my approach again. I started listening to English podcasts and audiobooks every day. At first, I couldn't understand much, but I didn't stop. I told myself just understand one sentence today, tomorrow maybe two. Slowly, I improved. One day, I decided to challenge myself again. I joined an online group where people from different countries practiced English together. This time, I didn't run away when I struggled. I listened, I spoke, I made mistakes, but I kept going. And then, something amazing happened. One of the group members, an American, said, "Wow, your English has improved so much. I remember when you first joined. You were nervous, but now you're speaking more naturally. Keep it up." I smiled. I had come so far from that shy student who was afraid to speak. Looking back, I realized that learning English wasn't just about words and grammar. It was about determination, patience, and belief in myself. If I had given up, I would have never reached this point. But because I kept going, step by step, I achieved something I once thought was impossible. And this isn't just about learning English, it's about everything in life. If you have a goal, a dream, or something you want to achieve, don't give up. Even if it's hard, even if progress is slow, just keep going. One day you'll look back and be proud of how far you've come, because the mind should never give up. My journey of learning, part 4. As time went on, my English improved, but I knew there was still more to learn. Mastering a language isn't just about speaking, it's about understanding, expressing yourself clearly, and feeling confident in any situation. One day, I faced a new challenge. My teacher asked me to participate in an English writing competition. She believed in me, but I wasn't sure. Writing in English was different from speaking. What if I made too many mistakes? What if my story wasn't good enough? For a moment, fear crept in again. But then, I remembered everything I had been through, how I had struggled, learned, and improved. This was just another step in the journey. So, I decided to try. I spent days writing and rewriting my story. I looked up new words, corrected my grammar, and made sure my ideas were clear. When I finally submitted my story, I felt proud. I had done my best. A week later, the results were announced. I didn't win first place, but I received a special mention for creativity. My teacher smiled and said, "See, I told you that you could do it." That moment taught me something important. Success isn't always about winning. It's about pushing yourself beyond what you thought was possible. From that day forward, I stopped being afraid of making mistakes. Instead of worrying about failure, I focused on learning. I started reading more books in English, writing every day, and even helping others who were learning the language. One day, something incredible happened. I was asked to help teach English to younger students. Me, the same person who once struggled to say a simple sentence, was now guiding others on their journey. As I stood in front of the class, I saw nervous faces just like mine had been years ago. I smiled and said, "I know learning English feels difficult, but trust me, if you don't give up, you will get there." That day, I realized my journey had come full circle. I had gone from struggling to speak, to writing stories, to teaching others. And all of it was possible because I never gave up. The lesson: never stop believing. Today, I can confidently say that learning English has changed my life. It has opened new opportunities, helped me connect with people from different cultures, and most importantly, taught me that the mind should never give up. Whether it's learning a language, chasing a dream, or overcoming a fear, success doesn't come to those who quit. It comes to those who keep going step by step, no matter how hard it gets. So, if you're struggling with something today, remember my story. Keep learning, keep pushing, and never give up. One day, you'll look back and see how far you've come. Because every effort counts, every step matters, and every dream is possible if you believe in yourself. My Journey of Learning, Part 5. After helping younger students with their English, I felt a deep sense of accomplishment. But I also knew that my learning journey was far from over. Mastery of a language or any skill is a lifelong process. One day, an opportunity came that would test everything I had learned so far. My school was hosting an international exchange program where students from different countries would visit and interact with us. The teachers were looking for volunteers to welcome and guide the guests in English. At first, I hesitated. Speaking in front of a class was one thing, but talking to native speakers? That was a whole new challenge. What if I said something wrong? What if they didn't understand me? But then I remembered everything I had overcome. Fear had held me back before, but not anymore. So I raised my hand and volunteered. Facing the biggest challenge. The day of the exchange program arrived, and I was assigned to a group of students from different countries: America, Canada, and Australia. The moment we started talking, I realized something surprising. They weren't expecting perfection. They just wanted to communicate and connect. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, sometimes I had to pause and think. But every time I spoke, I grew more confident. And the best part? They appreciated my efforts. One of the students even said, "Your English is really good. How long have you been learning?" When I told them about my struggles, they smiled and said, "That's amazing. You didn't give up, and now look at you." For the first time, I saw myself through their eyes, not as someone still learning, but as someone who had come a long way. A new dream begins. After that experience, I no longer saw English as just a subject to study. It had become a bridge to the world. I started dreaming bigger. What if I could study abroad someday? What if I could travel, meet new people, and share my story with the world? With that thought in mind, I set a new goal: to reach fluency and explore new opportunities beyond my hometown. I continued practicing, reading, writing, and speaking whenever I could. Every challenge became a chance to improve. Every mistake became a lesson. And today, as I look back, I realize something important. The journey never really ends, because learning, growing, and chasing dreams is a lifelong adventure. And as long as we never give up, anything is possible. Final words. Your journey starts now. If you're struggling with learning something, whether it's English or anything else, don't stop. Every mistake is progress. Every challenge is a lesson. And every step you take brings you closer to success. So keep going. Keep learning. Keep believing. One day you'll look back and realize you did it. My Journey of Learning, Part 6. After my experience with the International Exchange Program, a new dream began to take shape in my mind: studying abroad. It felt like an impossible goal at first. Traveling to another country, studying in an English-speaking environment, and adapting to a whole new culture seemed overwhelming. Could I really do it? But then, I remembered all the times I had doubted myself before. When I was too scared to speak in class, when I almost gave up after struggling with pronunciation, when I thought I would never be good enough. And yet, I had kept going. This would be just another challenge to overcome. So I made a decision: I would try. The journey to studying abroad. The first step was improving my English even more. I set a new goal to take an international English proficiency test like IELTS or TOEFL. These exams were difficult, and the thought of sitting in a room, answering complex questions, and writing essays in perfect English made me nervous. But instead of letting fear stop me, I prepared like never before. I started practicing speaking every day, even recording myself and listening to my mistakes. I read English newspapers, books, and academic articles to improve my vocabulary. I wrote essays and asked teachers to check them for corrections. I even watched videos of people taking the test to understand what to expect. After months of preparation, the exam day arrived. As I sat in the test center, I felt the familiar nervousness creeping in. But I took a deep breath and reminded myself, I have worked hard for this. I will do my best. When the results came back, I could hardly believe it. I had passed with a good score. I was one step closer to my dream. Taking the leap with my test results in hand, I started applying for universities and scholarships. The process was long and sometimes discouraging. Some schools rejected my application, but I didn't let that stop me. Finally, the day came when I received the email I had been waiting for. Congratulations. You have been accepted to our university. I couldn't believe it. I had actually done it. Soon I found myself standing in an airport, ready to leave my home country for the first time. As the plane took off, I looked out the window and realized this was only the beginning. A new world, new challenges. Arriving in a foreign country was exciting but also challenging. Everything was different: the culture, the food, the way people spoke. At first, I struggled to understand the fast paced conversations around me. Sometimes I felt lonely and out of place. But then I reminded myself I had come this far by never giving up. I wouldn't stop now. I made friends, asked for help when I needed it, and practiced every single day. Little by little, I started feeling more comfortable. My English became more fluent, and I even began helping other international students who were struggling, just like I once had. The real lesson. One day, while sitting in a university lecture, taking notes and understanding everything the professor was saying, I had a moment of realization. I remembered that shy student who was afraid to speak in English, the one who doubted himself, who almost gave up, who thought he would never be good enough. And yet, here I was, living my dream. I finally understood that success isn't about being perfect or never failing. It's about pushing through, even when things seem impossible. Your journey starts. Nalendao. If you have a dream, whether it's learning a new language, studying abroad, or achieving something you've always wanted, don't stop believing in yourself. Yes, it will be hard. Yes, there will be challenges, but if you keep going, step by step, you'll get there. Because the mind should never give up. And one day you'll look back and realize you made it. My journey of learning. Part 7. Studying abroad was a dream come true, but it was only the beginning of my real adventure. Every day was a learning experience both inside and outside the classroom. I met people from different cultures, tasted new foods, and saw places I had only read about in books. But along with the excitement came new challenges, struggles of living in a foreign country. At first, adjusting to life in a new country was harder than I expected. Language barriers. Even though my English had improved, I still struggled with accents, slang, and fast conversations. Sometimes I had to ask people to repeat themselves, and there were moments when I felt lost in discussions. Feeling homesick, I missed my family, my home, and the familiar sounds of my native language. Some nights I wondered if I had made the right choice. Academic pressure. University classes were demanding, and I had to write long essays, give presentations, and participate in discussions, all in English. There were days when I felt overwhelmed, but every time I thought about giving up, I reminded myself I had come too far to quit now. Finding strength in small wins instead of focusing on my struggles, I started celebrating small victories. The first time I had a full conversation in English without feeling nervous. The moment I gave my first class presentation and received positive feedback. The day I wrote a long essay without needing too many corrections. With each step, my confidence grew. I realized that perfection wasn't the goal. Progress was. Building a future. One day, my professor called me after class. "I've been watching your progress," he said. "Your hard work is impressive. Have you thought about applying for an internship?" An internship? The idea had never crossed my mind. The thought of working in an English-speaking environment was intimidating. What if I wasn't good enough? But then I remembered every time I stepped out of my comfort zone, I grew. So I took a deep breath and applied. After several interviews and a lot of nervous practicing, I got accepted. I couldn't believe it. The first job experience. Walking into my first day at the internship was nerve-wracking. My colleagues spoke quickly, used technical terms, and seemed so confident. At first, I felt like I didn't belong. But instead of giving in to doubt, I asked questions, took notes, and learned from every mistake. Slowly, I became more comfortable. My supervisor even complimented me one day, saying, "Your dedication is impressive. Keep going." That moment made me realize something important. Hard work and perseverance matter more than natural talent. By the end of my internship, I had gained not just experience but also the confidence to take on bigger challenges. A full circle moment. One evening, while helping a new intern who was struggling with English, I saw myself in them. I smiled and said, "Don't worry. I used to feel the same way. Just keep practicing. You'll get there." It was a full circle moment. The student who once struggled with English was now helping others. I realized then that learning never truly ends. Every new challenge is just another step in the journey. And as long as I never give up, there will always be new heights to reach. Final lesson. Keep going, keep growing. Looking back, I see that every struggle, every challenge, and every mistake led me to where I am today. If I had given up when I first struggled with English, I would have never made it this far. So to anyone reading this, whatever you're trying to achieve, don't stop. Success isn't about being the best right away. It's about never giving up, learning from failures, and always moving forward. Because one day, you'll look back and say, "I made it." My Journey of Learning, Part 8. After completing my internship, I felt a new sense of confidence. I had proven to myself that I could not only study in English but also work in a professional environment. But deep inside, I knew this was still just the beginning. A new goal, landing a full-time job. With graduation approaching, I faced my next challenge, finding a full-time job in a competitive market. The idea was intimidating. Many companies required years of experience, and I knew that as a foreign student, I would have to work even harder to prove myself. But I reminded myself of one important lesson. Nothing is impossible if you don't give up. The job hunt begins. I started applying to companies, sending out my resume, and preparing for interviews. At first, it was discouraging. Many rejections, no responses, and some interviews where I struggled with confidence. I could have given up, but instead, I used every rejection as a lesson. I improved my resume after getting feedback. I practiced my interview skills by recording myself. I expanded my network, connecting with professionals on LinkedIn. After months of persistence, I finally received an interview call from a company I had always admired. I prepared for days, reviewing common interview questions, practicing my answers, and even standing in front of a mirror to boost my confidence. When the interview day arrived, I walked in with one thought. I have worked for this moment. I will give it my best. The moment that changed everything. The interview went well. I spoke clearly, answered confidently, and shared my journey, how I overcame struggles and kept learning. At the end, the interviewer smiled and said, "You have a great story. We admire your perseverance." A week later, I received the call. "Congratulations. We would love to have you join our team." I had done it. The student who once struggled with English had now secured a job in an international company. A new beginning. On my first day at work, I felt nervous, but I reminded myself that every challenge is an opportunity to grow. I met colleagues from different backgrounds, worked on exciting projects, and even had the chance to present in English during meetings. The journey that once felt impossible had now become my reality. Looking back and moving forward. One evening, as I sat at my desk reflecting on my journey, I realized something powerful. The person who once feared speaking English was now working in a global environment. The one who once doubted himself was now helping others grow. And all of this happened because I never gave up. Final lesson. Your story isn't over yet. If there's one thing my journey has taught me, it's this. Success doesn't come to those who are the smartest or the most talented. It comes to those who refuse to quit. No matter what your goal is, learning a new language, building a career, or chasing your dreams, keep going. Even when it feels impossible, even when progress is slow, because every small step adds up. One day you'll look back and see how far you've come, and you'll realize that the most powerful thing you ever did was simply believe in yourself, because the mind should never give up. My journey of learning, Part 9. Landing my first full-time job was a dream come true. But as I soon realized, every new achievement comes with new challenges. At first, I was excited. Working in an international company, surrounded by talented colleagues, felt like everything I had worked for. But as the days passed, I started feeling something unexpected. Self-doubt. The struggles of a new workplace. My colleagues were fluent in English and spoke quickly in meetings. Sometimes I struggled to keep up. The work was challenging, and I worried that I wasn't good enough. I was afraid to speak up in discussions, fearing I might say something wrong. What if I make mistakes? What if they think I'm not capable? These thoughts haunted me every day. A lesson in confidence. One day during a team meeting, my manager asked for my opinion on a project. My heart raced. I had ideas, but fear held me back. What if I said something wrong? I hesitated for a moment, then reminded myself I had faced challenges before. I had learned, grown, and overcome them. So I took a deep breath and spoke. My voice shook a little, but I shared my thoughts. To my surprise, my manager nodded and said, "That's a great idea. Let's explore that further." That moment changed everything. I realized that my voice mattered. My ideas were valuable. And mistakes, they were just part of learning. Becoming a leader. Over time, I became more confident. I spoke up in meetings, contributed ideas, and even led small projects. One day, my manager called me into his office. "You've shown great growth. How would you feel about leading a new team?" I couldn't believe it. The same person who once struggled with English, who feared speaking up, was now being offered a leadership role. It wasn't easy at first. Leading a team meant communicating clearly, solving problems, and helping others succeed. But I remembered my journey, how I had learned step by step, never giving up. So I embraced the challenge. I mentored new employees, shared my experiences, and encouraged them to keep learning. A full circle moment. One day, a junior employee approached me after a meeting. "I'm struggling with my confidence," she admitted. "I'm afraid of making mistakes." I smiled because I saw myself in her. "I used to feel the same way," I said. "But trust me, every mistake is a step forward." Keep going. And one day, you'll look back and see how far you've come. At that moment, I realized something powerful. My journey wasn't just about me anymore. It was about helping others believe in themselves, just like I had learned to do. Final lesson: growth never ends. Looking back, I see that every struggle, every failure, and every challenge led me to where I am today. But the journey isn't over because learning never stops, growth never stops, and as long as we never give up, there will always be new heights to reach. So, to anyone reading this, no matter where you are in your journey, keep going, believe in yourself, and never ever give up. Because one day you'll look back and realize you didn't just learn, you became unstoppable. My Journey of Learning, Part 10. After stepping into a leadership role at work, I felt a deep sense of accomplishment. I had come a long way from the nervous student who once struggled with English. But life has a way of testing us just when we think we've figured everything out. A new challenge was waiting for me, one that would push me beyond anything I had ever experienced before. A bigger dream: starting my own business. As I gained experience in my job, I began noticing something. Many people, especially those from non-English speaking backgrounds, struggled with the same challenges I had faced: lack of confidence, fear of speaking up, and difficulty adjusting to a new environment. I remembered how lost I had felt when I first started, and I thought, what if I could help others overcome these struggles? That's when the idea hit me. I wanted to start my own training program to help professionals build confidence in communication. At first, it seemed like an impossible dream. I had never started a business before. I had no idea how to attract clients. I was afraid of failing. Could I really do this? But then I reminded myself, I had faced challenges before and overcome them. This was just another step forward. Taking the first step, I started small, created free workshops, inviting friends and colleagues to join. I used social media to share tips on communication and confidence. I connected with people who had similar experiences, learning from their journeys. Slowly, my idea started gaining attention. People reached out, saying my story inspired them. Some even asked if I could coach them personally. That's when I realized this wasn't just an idea anymore. It was becoming real, facing new fears. Running a business was harder than I had imagined. There were moments when I doubted myself. Some days, no one signed up for my workshops. Sometimes I struggled to explain my ideas clearly. And there were nights when I wondered, what if this doesn't work? But every time doubt crept in, I reminded myself of one thing: the only way to fail is to give up. And I wasn't going to give up. So I kept going. I learned from my mistake, improved my workshops, and kept believing in my vision. A breakthrough moment. One day, a well-known company contacted me. "We've heard about your work. Would you be interested in conducting a training session for our employees?" I was speechless. This was the opportunity I had been waiting for. The same person who once struggled with English was now being asked to teach professionals how to communicate with confidence. I prepared for days, practicing my speech, refining my presentation, and reminding myself that I was ready for this. When the big day arrived, I stood in front of a room full of professionals, took a deep breath, and began speaking. And something incredible happened. They listened. By the end of the session, people were asking questions, taking notes, and even thanking me for inspiring them. I had done it. The realization: a journey without limits. That moment made me realize something powerful. Every struggle I had faced had led me here. Every failure had been a lesson, pushing me forward. Every time I had wanted to quit but chose to keep going, I had built a future I once thought was impossible. And most importantly, I realized There are no limits to what we can achieve if we refuse to give up. Final lesson: keep dreaming, keep growing. Starting as a struggling student, becoming a confident professional, stepping into leadership, and now building my own business. My journey was proof that growth never stops. And I know that this is still just the beginning, because as long as we keep learning, keep pushing forward, and keep believing in ourselves, there will always be new heights to reach. So, to you, the reader, whatever your dream is, go after it. There will be obstacles, there will be failures, there will be moments when you want to quit. But if you keep going, one day you'll look back and realize you didn't just achieve your dreams, you became someone unstoppable. My journey of learning, part 11. Starting my own business had been a life changing step. I had moved from being a struggling student to a confident professional, and now to an entrepreneur. But as I soon learned, success isn't the end of the journey, it's just the beginning of bigger challenges. My workshops were getting recognition, more companies were inviting me to speak, and people were reaching out for coaching. It felt like a dream come true. But with success came new pressures, new fears, and a whole new level of self doubt. The pressure of growth. As my business expanded, I faced challenges I had never dealt with before. Time management, balancing multiple clients, running workshops, and handling business operations was overwhelming. I was working long hours and exhaustion was setting in. Imposter syndrome. Even though people saw me as an expert, I sometimes still felt like that nervous student who once struggled with English. Was I really qualified to teach others? Financial stress. Running a business wasn't just about passion, it also required financial planning. Some months were great, while others were tough. For the first time in a long time, I felt like giving up. But then I remembered the lesson that had carried me this far. The mind should never give up. I had come too far to stop now. Learning to adapt and lead. Instead of letting the pressure break me, I did what I had always done. I turned challenges into learning opportunities. I asked for help. I connected with other entrepreneurs, learned from their experiences, and even hired a mentor to guide me through the struggles of business. I focused on impact, not perfection. I stopped worrying about being perfect and focused on helping people as best as I could. I built a team. I couldn't do everything alone, so I started working with like minded people who shared my vision. Slowly, things started to change. I felt less overwhelmed, more confident, and more in control of my journey. The unexpected opportunity. One day, I received an email that would change everything. It was from an international conference on personal development. They had heard about my story and wanted me to speak in front of thousands of people. My heart raced. Giving workshops was one thing, but standing on a huge stage in front of an audience from different parts of the world, that was terrifying. I almost said no. The old fears returned. What if I make a mistake? What if my English isn't perfect? What if I fail? But then I remembered something important. Every time I had faced fear, I had grown stronger. So I said yes, stepping onto the global stage. The day of the conference arrived. As I stood backstage looking at the massive audience, I felt a rush of emotions: fear, excitement, and disbelief. I took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. I started speaking, sharing my journey, the struggles, the failures, the moments I wanted to quit, and how I kept going. I told them about the power of perseverance and how the mind should never give up. And as I spoke, something amazing happened. People listened, they nodded, they connected with my story. Some even had tears in their eyes. By the time I finished, the audience gave me a standing ovation. At that moment, I realized my journey wasn't just about me anymore. It was about inspiring others. All the struggles, all the failures, all the doubts, they had led me here. and I was just getting started. The journey never ends. That conference opened doors I had never imagined. Invitations poured in from companies, universities, and even global organizations. I started traveling, speaking at events, and helping thousands of people around the world build confidence and chase their dreams. But the biggest lesson I learned was this: no matter how far you go, there will always be new challenges. But if you keep learning, keep believing, and keep pushing forward, you will always rise to the next level. Final message: your story is just beginning. If you're reading this and you're facing struggles, doubts, or fears, know this: you are capable of more than you think. You don't have to be perfect to start. Every mistake is just a step forward. So, whatever your dream is, go after it. Because one day you will look back and see that every challenge, every failure, and every struggle was shaping you into someone unstoppable. Never give up. My Journey of Learning, Part 12. Standing on that global stage and sharing my journey was a defining moment in my life. But as I soon learned, success doesn't mean the end of challenges, it just brings new ones. Even though my business was growing and I was inspiring people worldwide, deep inside, I felt something was missing. The hidden struggles behind success. On the outside, my life looked perfect. I was traveling, speaking at events, and helping people build confidence. But behind the scenes, I was struggling with burnout. The constant pressure to perform and inspire others drained me. I was always working, always traveling, and never taking time for myself. Loneliness. While I had professional success, I realized I had neglected my personal life, friends, family, and even my own happiness. Fear of failure. The more successful I became, the more afraid I was of making mistakes. I felt like people expected me to always be strong, always be confident. I had spent years teaching people how to overcome fear and doubt, but now I was facing them again, this time at a deeper level, a life-changing realization. One evening, after returning from a major speaking event, I sat alone in my apartment, exhausted. My phone was filled with congratulatory messages, but instead of feeling happy, I felt empty. That's when it hit me. Success isn't just about achieving goals. It's about balance. It's about happiness. It's about truly living. I had spent so much time pushing forward that I never paused to enjoy how far I had come. It was time to change that. Redefining success. A new journey begins. I decided to take a step back, not from my dreams, but from the constant pressure I was putting on myself. I started setting boundaries. I made time for rest, hobbies, and personal relationships. I reconnected with my family and friends. Success meant nothing if I didn't have people to share it with. I focused on impact over perfection. I reminded myself that making mistakes was okay. What mattered was continuing to grow. And something amazing happened. I felt more at peace. My work became more meaningful. I started enjoying the journey again, instead of just chasing the next achievement. The biggest lesson of all. Looking back, I realized that the greatest challenge wasn't learning English, landing a job, or starting a business. It was learning to balance ambition with happiness. Because true success isn't just about what you achieve, it's about how you live. Your journey matters. If you're chasing a dream, remember this: work hard, but don't forget to enjoy the process. Push forward, but also take time to rest and recharge. Achieve success, but don't lose yourself along the way. Because at the end of the day, success isn't about how much you accomplish, it's about how much you grow, how much you inspire, and how much you truly live. So, wherever you are in your journey, keep going, but also take time to breathe. Because life isn't just about reaching the destination, it's about enjoying the ride. Never give up, but never forget to live.